Some Italian surnames are not Italian: Lombardi, Greco, Sannino, Toscano. Those four are not descriptions of a man. They are the names of nations. A Germanic army, a Greek colony, a mountain people Rome spent 50 years trying to erase, and a civilization whose language nobody alive can fully read. Italy was never one people. Before Rome there were more than 40, speaking a dozen languages, and Rome conquered every one of them. Some were wiped out, some are still in the phone book. These are the 10 ancient peoples still hiding in Italian surnames, counting down to the one carried by more people today than any other. Look for yours as we go. Because number 1 is not Italian at all. Its people crossed the Alps as invaders, burned their way to Pavia, and millions of Americans now carry their name without ever once questioning it. Number 10 spoke a language nobody has decoded, and it named a city after a deer. The Messapians lived in the heel of Italy, the flat, sunburnt land of the Salento. They came across the Adriatic from Illyria, and they left roughly 600 inscriptions in an alphabet they borrowed from the Greeks of Taranto. We can sound the words out. We still cannot read most of them. They were dangerous. In 338 before Christ, King Archidamus of Sparta came to fight in southern Italy and died outside the Messapian town of Manduria. Rome took their port of Brundisium in 267 before Christ and planted a Latin colony there in 244. Within 2 centuries, the language was gone. But the port kept its Messapian name. Brentian, in their tongue, meant the head of a stag, because the harbor branches into inlets shaped like antlers. Romans wrote it Brundisium. Italians say Brindisi. And the surname Brindisi is carried today by families across Puglia and throughout the United States. Here's the strange part. That surname is not the tribe's name for itself. It is a Messapian word for an animal, preserved by Roman clerks who did not speak a syllable of the language it came from. If it is your name, your family is carrying the last working fragment of a dead tongue. The next people were absorbed so completely that Rome put one of their kings on its own throne. Number 9 gave Rome a king, a priesthood, and its second oldest legend, then vanished into the city that took them. The Sabines lived in the hills northeast of Rome, above the Tiber, in stone villages that farmed and herded. Roman legend says the first Romans, short of women, seized Sabine daughters at a festival, and that the war ended with the Sabine king Titus Tatius ruling Rome jointly with Romulus. Legend or not, the second king of Rome, Numa Pompilius, was remembered as a Sabine, and Rome credited him with its entire religious calendar. The end came in 290 before Christ, when Manius Curius Dentatus crushed them. In 268, the Sabines received full Roman citizenship. They stopped being a people and became taxpayers. The surnames are Sabini, Sabino, and Sabelli. Now the part you will not like. Most families named Sabino are not descended from Sabines. Saint Sabinus, bishop of Canossa in Puglia, died around 566 and became one of the most popular saints in the south. The name spread through baptism registers, not bloodlines. If your Sabini line is from Lazio or Abruzzo, the tribe is plausible. If it is from Puglia, you are named for a bishop. The next people beat a Roman army so badly that Rome spent 2 centuries pretending it had not happened. Number 8 made 2 Roman consular armies strip their weapons and walk under a yoke of spears. The Samnites held the mountains of the interior, what is now Molise and inland Campania. They were herders and infantry, and they fought Rome in 3 wars between 343 and 290 before Christ. In 321, at a narrow pass called the Caudine Forks, the Samnite general Gaius Pontius trapped an entire Roman army without a fight. He let them live. He made them pass under the yoke first, an act of humiliation Romans still wrote about 300 years later. Rome never forgave it. At the Battle of Sentinum in 295, the Samnite alliance broke. The real ending came in 82 before Christ, when Sulla destroyed a Samnite force at the Colline Gate outside Rome and had thousands of prisoners executed. The geographer Strabo, writing decades afterward, said Samnium's towns had been reduced to villages. The surnames are Sannino, Sanito, and Saniti, still concentrated in Campania today. Here's the twist. Samnite is what Romans called them. Their own name for themselves was Surname, from the same root that gives us Sabini. Numbers 9 and 8 are cousins wearing different Latin labels. If it is your name, your ancestors are the reason Roman generals feared mountains. The next people were deported by the tens of thousands, and what they left is a sound at the end of village names. Number 7 was fought for 80 years, shipped 400 miles from home, and never wrote a single book. The Ligurians occupied the coastal mountains of the northwest and far beyond, into Piedmont and southern France. Their language was probably not Indo-European, though that reading is not fully settled. They built no cities worth the name. They fought in small bands, on ground where legions could not form. Rome's answer was removal. Livy records that in 180 before Christ the consuls deported 40,000 Apuani Ligurians from the Apennines to empty land in Samnium, and sent 7,000 more the following year. Entire valleys were emptied of people and refilled with strangers. What survives is a sound. Village names ending in Asco and Asca, scattered across Liguria and Piedmont, are widely read as pre-Roman Ligurian. Crevasco, Velasco, Vernasca. Families took those villages as surnames and carried them to America. Now the debunking, and here honesty matters more than a good story. The surname Liguri is not Ligurian. It has nothing to do with Liguria. It is a southern dialect worn-down form of Gregorio, which is why Italy's most famous Liguori, Alfonso Maria de Liguori, born 1696, was a Neapolitan. If it is your name, you are named for a saint named Gregory. The next people wrote their language onto bronze and gave an entire sea its name. Number 6 bred the horses that Greeks paid fortunes for, and their goddess still has an alphabet. The Veneti lived at the top of the Adriatic. Herodotus called them Anatoi and placed them there before Rome existed. Their sanctuary at Ateste, modern Este, produced hundreds of votive offerings to the goddess Rhaetia, including small bronze tablets inscribed with alphabets, apparently used to teach writing. They were rich from horses and amber. They made one decision that changed everything. When the Gauls poured into northern Italy, the Veneti sided with Rome. They were never conquered. They were absorbed as allies and received full citizenship in 49 before Christ. Their port of Adria gave its name to the Adriatic Sea. The surnames are Veneto, Veneti, Veneziano, and Venier, the last carried by a family that gave Venice 3 doges. Here's the twist. Veneziano is rare in Venice. It is common in Sicily and Campania. Nobody calls you the Venetian in Venice, because everyone there is. The label only sticks where you are the outsider, which means most Veneziano families descend from a man who left. If it is your name, your ancestor was the only one in his village who came from somewhere else. If you have made it this far, subscribe now. Number 2 on this list is the surname carried across half of southern Italy. It is also the name of a wine, and almost nobody who has it can explain why it means foreigner. The next people ruled Italy for 3 centuries and left not one word of their language in any common surname. Number 5 taught Rome its gods, drained its form, and then disappeared so thoroughly that scholars still argue over their tombstones. The Etruscans held 12 cities across modern Tuscany, Umbria, and northern Lazio. Rome's early kings, the Tarquins, were Etruscan. Their engineers built the drain under the Roman form. Their priests read the future in the livers of sheep, a discipline Romans adopted and used for 800 years. Rome ate them city by city. Veii fell in 396 before Christ, after a siege remembered as lasting 10 years. The Emperor Claudius wrote a history of the Etruscans in 20 books, and every one of them is lost. In 44 before Christ, an Etruscan diviner named Spurina warned Julius Caesar about the Ides of March. Now, the honesty. Not one common Italian surname can be traced to the Etruscan language. Not one. Toscano, Tosci, and Tosco all come from the Latin Tusci, the Roman word for them, and simply mean the man from Tuscany. The closest exception is the Etruscan family name Catina of Volterra, which survives as the Tuscan River and town Cesena, and rarely as a surname, though that line is not fully settled. If your name is Toscano, it is Roman packaging around an Etruscan absence. The next people gave their name to an island, and then to everyone who left it. Number 4 had a leader who nearly built a native kingdom in Sicily, 3 centuries before Rome ever landed there. The Sicels crossed from mainland Italy into eastern Sicily. Thucydides wrote that they arrived roughly 300 years before the first Greek colonists, which puts them there around the 11th century before Christ. Greeks pushed them inland. They kept their towns in the hills. Then came Thucydides. Beginning around 460 before Christ, he united the Sycile cities into a single federation, founded a new capital at Pallas, and took territory from Greek Syracuse. In 451, he was beaten. He walked into Syracuse alone and threw himself on the altar in the marketplace, and the Syracusans, astonished, exiled him to Corinth instead of killing him. He came back, founded another city, and died in 440 before Christ. The Federation died with him. Their name outlived them. Sicilia became Sicilia, became Sicily. The surnames are Siciliano, Siculo, and Sicilia. And here's the correction that matters. Siciliano does not mark Sicile descent, it marks departure. It was given to Sicilians living on the mainland, which is why it clusters in Campania and Calabria. If it is your name, your family was identified by strangers as the ones who came from the island. The next people arrived from northern France, took that island in 30 years, and left behind a first name half the South still uses. Number 3 was a family of brothers from a village in Normandy that produced 2 kings. Tancred of Hauteville was a minor Norman lord with 12 sons and not enough land. He sent them south as mercenaries. By 1061, Robert Guiscard and his younger brother Roger were invading Sicily, then under Muslim rule. Palermo fell in 1072. The last resistance ended at Noto in 1091. In 1130, Roger II was crowned king in Palermo Cathedral, over a kingdom where Latin, Greek, and Arabic were all official. There were never many of them. A few thousand Normans governed millions, and within 3 generations they were speaking Sicilian. The surnames are Normanno, Altavilla, which is simply Hauteville translated, and above all Ruggiero, Ruggeri, and Ruggieri, from the Germanic name Hrodgar. Now the debunking. Ruggiero is not evidence of Norman blood. It is evidence of Norman fashion. Sicilian and Calabrian fathers named sons after King Roger for 200 years, exactly as Americans named sons Washington. The Arabic surnames sitting beside them we handle in the video on Arab Sicily. If it is your name, your ancestor admired a conqueror. That is not the same as being one. The next people left a language still spoken in 9 villages today, and a wine you can buy in an American supermarket. Number 2 founded cities in Italy before Rome had walls, and their name became one of Italy's most common surnames. Greeks began settling the south around 770 before Christ on the island of Ischia. Then came Cumae, Taranto founded by Spartans in 706, Sybaris in 720. Sybaris grew so wealthy that its name became a word for luxury, and in 510 before Christ, the rival city of Croton destroyed it and, according to ancient writers, diverted a river over the ruins. Romans called the whole region Magna Graecia, Greater Greece. Greek did not die there. Byzantine rule kept it alive for centuries, and a Greek dialect called Greco is still spoken today in a cluster of villages in the Salento and in Calabria. The surnames are Greco, Grieco, Greci, and Lo Greco. Greco sits among the most common surnames in all of Italy. Here is the twist. Greco usually did not mean Greek by blood, it meant Greek by right, a Christian who worshipped in the Byzantine manner. It was applied to Albanian refugees arriving after 1453 so consistently that the village of Greci in Campania speaks Albanian, not Greek, and the grape Greco di Tufo carries the same label. If it is your name, it records a religion more often than a nation. The one at the top crossed the Alps in 568, and its name later came to mean something you would never guess: a man who lends money. Number 1 is not Italian, was never Italian, and today names an entire Italian region. In 568, the Lombards came down from Pannonia under their king Alboin. They were Germanic, from the Elbe country originally, and they arrived into an Italy wrecked by 20 years of Gothic war and plague. Pavia held out for 3 years and fell in 572. It became their capital. they stayed 2 centuries. King Rothari issued his written law code in 643, 388 chapters, in Latin, still full of Germanic words for wounds and blood money. Charlemagne finally took Pavia in 774, but the Lombard Duchy of Benevento in the south survived far longer. The surnames are Lombardi, Lombardo, Longobardi, Lombardini, and Lombardelli, and together they are carried by hundreds of thousands of people. Now the twist that undoes almost everyone. Lombardo, as a surname, mostly did not mark a Germanic warrior. In the south, it meant a man who had come down from the north, and across medieval Europe, Lombard meant banker, which is why London still has a Lombard Street. If it is your name, your ancestor was called a foreigner, and the label outlived the country it named. 10 peoples, 4 erased by Rome outright, 4 that named modern Italian regions, 3 that were never Italian at all, and at least 4 surnames on this list that mean something completely different from what your family always assumed. Now tell us where you are listening from and which surname you want decoded. Any name, any origin. It does not have to be Italian, and it does not have to be your own. We read every single one, and the next videos on this channel are built out of that comment section. If you stayed all the way to the end, you are exactly who this channel is made for. Next on this channel, the surname carried by more than 200,000 Italians that literally means abandoned, given by hospitals and convents to infants left at the door. And the reason it is not a name of shame, but the only proof that a child was saved. Subscribe so you do not miss it.